Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Seni, your public health doctor, and today we're talking about something that affects every single one of us. Whether you live in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Owerri, Kano, or anywhere in between, climate change. Now I know some of you will be thinking, Dr. Seni, this is a topic for scientists and politicians. What does it have to do with my health? It has everything to do with your health. Because climate change is not just about melting ice caps and dying polar bears. It's about the floods destroying homes in river states. It's about the heat waves that is making people collapse in the markets. It's about malaria spreading to communities that never had it before. It is about cholera outbreaks after heavy rainfall. Climate change is not just a future problem, it is happening right now in our streets, in our hospitals, in our bodies. And today, we're talking about it. So, stay with me. So, let's start from the beginning. Climate change, what does it mean? It refers to long-term shift in global temperatures and weather patterns. While some of these shifts are natural since the 1800s, human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, gas, have been the main driver of climate change. Do you believe that Nigeria is one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change? You don't believe? Okay, so this is how it happens. We are heavily dependent on rain-fed agriculture. So when the rainfall patterns change, food security is threatened. Also, communities in the Niger Delta, including Nigerian river states, we are facing rising sea levels, coastal erosion, devastating food. Northern Nigeria is experiencing desertification. That's the gradual turning of fertile land into deserts, pushing communities southward and increasing conflicts over resources. Average temperature across Nigeria are rising, making heat-related illness increasing. It is very common, increasingly common, very common. All this I'm saying is not abstract. It is our reality, and it's getting worse. Now, the art of today's conversation, because I'm a public health doctor, what concerns me most is what climate change is doing to human bodies and human lives generally. Let's break it down. The first on the list is heat-related illnesses. As temperature rise, we are seeing more cases of heat exhaustion, dizziness, um, heavy sweating, weakness, nausea, sleep disturbance, also heat stroke, which is a medical condition, a medical emergency, where the body temperature rises dangerously high. We are seeing worsening conditions like heart diseases, diabetes, respiratory illness. All these are made worse by extreme heat. So the elderly, the young children, the pregnant women, outdoor workers, they are mostly at risk. In Nigeria, most, as in millions of workers, they are outdoors, in the market, in the farm, in the construction sites, and these rising temperatures are a daily health threat to them. Another way why we are mostly affected in Nigeria is that floods and waterborne diseases, they go pari passu. They are always together because every year flooding in Nigeria, River State, Anambra, Kogi, Benue, it displaces thousands of people. And like I said earlier, wherever flood goes, disease will go. Diseases like cholera, which is spread rapidly where flood water contaminates our water sources, or typhoid where it contaminates both water sources and our food, or leptospirosis whereby flood contaminates our water sources with animal urine. Then maybe skin infections, which arises from prolonged contacts of our body with dirty flood water. Malnutrition also, whereby crops are destroyed, food supplies are disrupted, so malnutrition sets in. The 2022 flood in Nigeria were among the worst in decades, where over 600 people died and more than 1.3 million people were displaced. And these outbreaks followed in multiple states. This was not just a natural disaster, that was a climate change driven public health emergency. Another thing that happens that makes Nigeria one of the most vulnerable countries is that vector-borne diseases like malaria and more, they expand the territory of disease carrying, like mosquitoes. Now we now see mosquitoes in areas that they were not seen before, because as temperature rises and rainfall patterns change, Mosquitoes are now breeding in new areas and for longer seasons. Also, diseases like dengue fever, meningitis, we now see more of their outbreaks. Nigeria already has the highest malaria burden in the world. Climate change is worsening it. Another reason is air quality and respiratory disease, as they are on the high rise now because of climate change. Because climate change is worsening the air quality these days. There's increased dust and particulate matter, especially in the northern Nigeria. Also, there's higher level of indoor air pollution as people burn more biomass fuel during colder or wetter seasons. Diseases like asthma and chronic respiratory diseases are worsening with poor air quality, and children are particularly vulnerable because we know that respiratory diseases is one of the leading cause of death in Nigerian children under the age of 5. Another thing is mental health is disturbed, and this is an aspect of health that is often overlooked, but it is very real. Climate anxiety, the psychological distress that is caused by the awareness of this climate threats. We have traumas, post-traumatic stress disorder from experiencing flood, from displacement, loss of homes, loss of livelihood, even depression from the loss of farmland, loss of income, So when a farmer loses his entire harvest now to flooding, it is not just an economic loss. It affects the mental health of that farmer. So we have been able to deduce that climate change affects everyone, but it does not affect us all equally. There are some people that are more at risk than those with the less resources to cope with. The rural poor, they are more at risk. Women and girls, we bear a lot of disproportionate burden of climate impacts. Children under 5 whose developing bodies are more vulnerable to heat, disease, malnutrition. The elderly also, they are less able to cope with all this extreme heat and physical displacement. Also, the slum and informal settlement dwellers, with limited access to clean water, sanitation, healthcare, they are more at risk also. And people living with chronic illnesses, their conditions worsen under climate stress. This is a health equity problem. People who contributed least to climate change are suffering its worst consequences. But the good news is awareness is growing. Nigeria has made some commitments. In recent time, Nigeria signed the Paris Agreement on climate change. Also, there is the National Adaptation Plan framework, which is being developed. Also, some states are implementing flood early warning systems so that we do not wait till when the flood begins. Prior to the occurrence, people are warned. Also, the Nigerian Emergency Management Agency, they respond to flood disasters. But we need so much more to be done. At least we need strong climate policy that specifically addresses health outcomes of flood. We need climate resilient health systems, to make sure that our hospitals and our health centers can withstand and respond to climate-related health emergencies. Also, we need to invest more in clean water and sanitation, so that when floods come, the waterborne disease outbreaks are minimized. Also, we need to support our farmers. There should be alternative livelihoods during those periods. The drought-resistant crops should be planted, and there should be flood insurance to the farmers. Also, our community-level climate education, because people cannot even protect themselves from these threats because they don't understand it. And we should also train our health workers to organize programs that would help to teach them so that they can recognize and respond to climate change health emergencies on time, because it deserves a health emergency response. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Dr. Seni, I'm just one person. What can I possibly do about climate change? You have more than enough things to do. So here is how. Number 1, reduce waste, especially plastic waste that blocks drains and worsens flooding. Also, plant trees. Trees help to absorb carbon, reduce the heat, and prevent erosion. Afforestation, I mean. We should conserve water, especially during dry season. We should also use our energy wisely. Reduce unnecessary generator use when possible. Know your flood risk. If you live in a flood-prone area, please have an emergency plan. Also, protect your health. Stay hydrated in the heat. Use mosquito nets to prevent mosquito bites. Treat water before drinking. Seek medical care, especially during flood season. Most importantly, speak up. Demand climate action from your local government representatives. Educate your community. Share this video. Have this conversation, because every action counts. And Collective action can change the system. So we know that heat, floods, disease, displacement, hunger, mental health crisis, this is what climate change looks like in Nigeria. This is what it looks like in our society. So if this video resonates with you and if it has spoken with you, share with friends, share with your colleagues. Let us discuss. Are there other things you feel that should be done? Are there other measures you think that can be taken to help to curb this flood incidents? I read all my comments. I read all comments that are left on my videos. I do read them. You might be surprised that your comments may be something I will speak about in my next video. So, I am Dr. Seni and I care. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.